Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Servants. Today, I decided to tackle a subject that I myself have trouble comprehending, but we'll delve into the depths of gag characters and copyright lines skirting parody, that is, the Servant Universe, or simply, the Servantverse. The Servantverse is a recurring event theme that appears in FGO, and alongside Gouda Gouda and Halloween is used almost exclusively for comedic purposes. By its nature, the Servantverse is not meant to be taken seriously, and constantly changes forms and breaks its own rules. So, the very fact that I'm making this video is a sick joke on me, where all of this information is almost guaranteed to have an expiration date. But I will do my due diligence and attempt to help you comprehend exactly what the Servantverse is. Let's start off with the general concept. The Servantverse is a parallel world populated by servants rather than humans. Kind of. The way in which the Servant Universe operates is that its time flows in seasons or chapters, similar to a television show, meaning that while we are on the Star Wars season currently, it has the potential to flip over to something completely different. Now, I use the word kind of when referring to who populates the Servantverse, because while it's almost exclusively made up of servants who stop aging after they hit their peak, the existence of masters is still a concept within the universe. Also, only certain Servantverse servants have true names, and they are spread few and far between in the Servantverse, so to meet one is a rare occurrence. A servant cannot be a master, and a master is able to bolster the abilities of a servant. There was a time when there were more masters, but then a universe update occurred and wiped out all of them save for 7. To understand this event, we have to start all the way at the beginning. While we as humans believe in primordial deities, so too did the residents of the Servantverse. However, while the deities that we worshipped were real, there was originally no such thing in the Servantverse. Planets' populations would often revere a concept for centuries upon centuries for allowing them to live and prosper. Over time, this gratitude and emotion gathered together and created a being for the individual planets. These goddesses would directly interact and tend to their civilizations and would be extremely hostile to any outside forces that try to act on their world. As more goddesses popped up, they would fight amongst each other. The loser of these fights was often destroyed along with their civilization. Of these, a certain incredibly powerful primordial goddess emerged. Then, 2,000 years before the start of Saber Wars 2, the universe update occurred. This was meant to reset everything and allow servants to reign free from the shackles and worries of the destructive goddesses. However, the powerful primordial goddess rejected the update and attempted to retain her power. In vengeance for the mere thought of replacing her, the goddess became a demon set to destroy all of servant and humankind. Thus, the Galactic Police force got involved, bringing 7 servants and one of the final masters to destroy the demon. These were Tokiomi Tosaka, Red Hair, Hijikata, Calamity Jane, Siegfried, Merlin, a goddess assassin, and a siege lancer. Unfortunately, I cannot find who the last 2 actually are, but I believe it is Semiramis as the assassin, and no clue for the lancer. I would say Gareth because they are described as a Siegebreaker Lancer, but that does not feel correct to me. Regardless, together they managed to make the primordial goddess called Ashtart go into a deep sleep by splitting her into 2 beings, alter egos of the original, a good side and an evil side. Tokiomi adopted the evil side to raise her to be good. This is our very own farming legend, Space Ishtar. The aftermath of this was the creation of the Shining Blue Galaxy, in which all of the Servantverse is held. The reason for its blue coloration is because of the excessive levels of ether provided by the universe update that allow servants to exist. Speaking of which, let's look at the primary differences between our world and the Servantverse. The primary one, and the one I mentioned prior, is that the Servantverse is occupied by, well, servants rather than humans. This means a handful of things. For one, it is implied that servants do not die when they are killed. Eat shit, Emiya. They will respawn, per se, after a certain amount of time in a random place. Now, I believe that it is possible for a permadeath to be applied to servants, as it is mentioned in Saber Wars 2's story, but once again, the rules are so loose that I doubt this will stick around. However, this rule does allow for 2 things. 1, servants constantly can eliminate each other without major repercussions, and 2, there is a need to detain and reform excessively violent servants. Enter the Galactic Police force. The whole purpose of the Galactic Police is to maintain order amongst immortals. They are set to deal with any extreme incidents that may threaten servant kind, such as the reawakening of the primordial goddess. We are familiar with 1 member of this force as of right now, everyone's favorite galactic office lady, Mysterious Heroine X, or as I will call her, MHX. She is a Saberface who set out from her hometown to eliminate all other Sabers. She did so with a bittersweet expression, apparently. It is implied that she was a member of the evil organization known as the Dark Round, which is essentially the Knights of the Round Table, but the table is a kotatsu, and they actually don't do anything. She herself does not seem to view them as evil, but rather as subordinates, as we see with her interaction with Lancelot. It is through her DNA that the Dark Round Table would create MHX Alter, but I'll go into her later. Outside of saber slaying, MHX also is tasked with threat elimination for her job as a police officer. She travels to where potential threats against humanity and threats against servant kind appear, similarly to a Grand Servant but dumber and honestly more consistent. We see her do this in the Servantverse event, where she appears with the intention of slaying foreigners, namely Bibi. Her true identity is that of Artoria, though everyone knows that. She believes that her disguise is perfect and that no one is onto her, despite her signature Artoria Ohoge popping out through her hat. In the first Saber Wars event, she was initially planning on defeating Saber Lily, but took pity on her and instead decided to teach her. This all started when X crashed her spaceship that runs on Ultrium, which is the crystallized magical energy found throughout the universe that just happens to resemble Artoria's Ohoge. MHX Ultra, on the other hand, is a scientifically created servant, an evil MHX. What this means is that she eats junk food and is on the verge of being sued by Disney. She uses a lightsaber. An evil sword that glows red, and her mission is to wreak evil throughout the galaxy, or something. She was created by Dark Agravain and trained under him until the destruction of the Dark Round Table by Professor Babajan. She had Agravain steal her memories away before the destruction, and then she was sent to Space High School. I can feel my brain shutting down as I write this script. It was here that she and regular MHX would meet and form a bond. Their relationship is one of siblings, constantly at each other's throats and disagreeing, but still showing enough care to help each other out when they need to. It is honestly very sweet in a way. During her stay, she has her memories restored and puts a legendary figure in the Servantverse, Professor Babajan, out of commission. She then joins an intergalactic evil organization known as the Villains Alliance. We don't really know what they're about, but I assume it's just a standard evil group. I will immediately apologize if there's a lack of information on some of the parts of this, but let me level with all of you for a minute. This is an entirely original concept of FGO, so further exploration is somewhat limited to what we have available to us. So, for example, the only thing we really know about the Dark Ground is that the actual table is a kotatsu that MHX Alter uses in Chaldea, and that it had former members of the Round Table, and that it was destroyed by Babajan. That's it, done. So, let me explain how servants differ from their real-world counterparts. I've already covered MHX and MHX Alter. It is very clear to see how they are different from their real-world counterparts, namely King Arthur. However, characters like Calamity Jane are fairly interesting. She strongly resembles our world's Jane, including having a skill that could only be tied to if she was this world's Jane. If you want more context on the real Calamity Jane, check out my video on her. Space Calamity Jane resembles our Jane through her caring demeanor and love for alcohol. She also shares somewhat of the same aesthetic with her first ascension. She also still uses a noble phantasm she would have gained from her real-world counterpart. She begins to differ when you start to take into account that she has a noble phantasm-like skill that allows her to make the impossible possible. As mentioned prior, she was one of the servants present at the defeat of Ashtart. As such, she was granted eternal life, unable to die and forced to wander for eternity. For most, this would drive one insane. 2,000 years of eternal wandering. But due to her happy-go-lucky nature, she was able to retain who she was. It is stated that with her abilities, she was the deciding factor in the defeat of the primordial goddess Ashtart. Not just once, but twice. Let's now focus on another space organization, the Space Shinkai Ryu. For reference, Shinkai Ryu is a real concept and is a traditional school of Japanese martial arts. It is primarily a school of swordsmanship. The leader of this group was Space Ishtar's good side, who thought she was the evil side, and Space Yagyu Munenori. Their ultimate goal was to resurrect the primordial goddess and then use its power to shape the universe to their own image. Their other goal was to make other servants into sabers. This was to spread their influence as well as to recruit others into their cause. Remember, before FGO and class advantages, the Saber class was considered to be the strongest class. Meanwhile, in FGO, the Archer class is the one that's full of broken DPS servants, and casters are insane in their own right. Anyway, Munenori is the second in command, but the real leader, sacrificing Space Ishtar to resurrect the primordial goddess. Alright, let's move from the Saber Wars and go into some more concepts that are Servantverse related. Let's start with Amazonas. This is once again skirting the lines of copyright, and is a complete rip-off of Amazon except with actual survivable working conditions. This has everyone's favorite CEO and washboard abs haver, Penthesilea. Note, she is not the Chaldean Penth. You can tell because the Space Penth wears clothing. Now, this one is bizarre to me because it defies what we know about the Servantverse. She, much like MHX, can break into our world, but rather than do so to defeat some grand evil, she does so to deliver packages to servants. The implication is that she can transcend time and space in order to get 2-day delivery done, which is great in comparison to having a package sent to Hawaii for some goddamn reason before being sent to the mainland and losing the package along the way. I'm not bitter, I promise. Anyway, our interactions with her imply the existence of an entire planet based around Troy, meaning that realistically the sky's the limit with the planets. I'll get into that later because it gets miraculously dumber somehow. Anyway, her whole existence is a clear spoof on the fact that literally everyone relies on Amazon, even ethereal warriors from across time. Now for the dumbest thing and honestly my favorite. Let's talk about mysterious Ranmaru X. Ranmaru X is a Ranmaru from the planet Ranmaru, where there is a civilization of Ranmarus where the best Ranmarus become Ranmaru X. I think I'm having a stroke. The reason she is an Avenger is because she harbors the desires of all Ranmarus to get revenge on the Akechi soul. For more information on what the hell I'm talking about, go watch my Nobunaga video because that will explain their history. Note that Mori Ranmaru and Mysterious Ranmaru X are not the same. Mori Ranmaru is the real-life brother of Mori Nagayoshi. Despite this, she does resemble her would-be brother with her teeth as well as having a blood-covered expression. Clearly, they have to be related in some fashion. In fact, in a voice line, it is indicated by Ranmaru X that there is a planet of Mori Nagayoshians that exists as the brother planet to the Ranmaru planet. Also, those ones have finally settled down and are starting to develop the civilization for some reason, implying that we will probably get a Space Mori at some point. Once again, the implication of this is that for some servants, entire civilizations are built around what we would know as a single servant, meaning the possibility of a Nobu planet that will appear as a Guda Guda event of Space Nobunaga attempting to conquer the universe is real. In fact, it is noted by MHX that the Artoria species does exist, and that MHX hates them. Hence, why when she sees the Saberface, she has an immediate hostile reaction. As for Ranmaru, her species has a certain knack for associating with those of a ruling stature, such as emperors and shoguns. This is in large part as to why, despite never seeing Nobu, she takes to her pretty fast. To put it in summary, the Servantverse is a place where the Fate Grand Order writing team is able to test out their wildest ideas. It exists as a conceptual playground for them to glide along the razor's edge that is a copyright infringement. However, this also means that it is able to provide some of the more out there and bizarre concepts that I personally have come to expect from the FGO recurring events. So, I welcome all the new and strange additions we will receive in the future. But that is it! Thank you all so much for watching. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. Leave a comment if there's another Fate concept that you would like for me to explore. Like the videos, it really does help out the channel. Share it with your friends, subscribe to catch these as they go up. Follow my Twitch for significantly less structured content. I also have a Twitter, but for now, keep your chin up. Peace.